Hi everybody. My name is Jen. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm from My G Work. We're a global professional network for the LGBTQ plus individuals and anyone who believes in workplace equality and inclusion, and of course, allies. So if you're an ally, thank you so much for coming today. We're always welcoming and love to have you come and support events just like this. So, as this is the second week of November, it is a 1 week celebration leading up to Transgender Day of Remembrance, which commemorates the lives lost due to transphobic violence. And throughout November, we have and will be sharing stories, interviews, and graphics to educate and empower our community to support transgender rights. Being an ally to the trans community starts with learning. So this is why today's session is Trans Empowerment, Lived Experiences, an event sponsored by Proexcel. And we have an amazing, great panel, and we're going to have a great discussion. And so before I leave the floor to Liam, I want to go ahead and let our panelists introduce themselves. So who wants to go first? I'll leave the floor to you. How about Diamond? You go first.
All righty. Hey, everybody. My name is Diamond Styles. I am the executive director of Black Trans Women's Inc., based in Dallas, Texas, here in the United States. And I am also the host and creator of Marsha's Plate podcast, a podcast that explores culture and politics from a Black trans feminist lens.
Tate, why don't you go next?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Tate Smith. My pronouns are he, him. I'm an openly gay transgender man. I work at Clifford Chance as a program sports officer. I study law part-time too, and I volunteer at Gender Intelligence, which is a charity for young trans children. Really happy to be here today, and thanks for everyone for joining us.
Right. Ros?
Hi everybody, I'm Ros Round and I work at Proexcel with Liam. I head up the Patient Innovation Centre, and the role that we have is to improve access to clinical research for all people around the world. And we've been doing a lot of work with the transgender and non-binary community recently. My pronouns are she, her, and I am an ally. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you. And then Victoria.
Hello everyone, my name is Victoria and my pronouns are she and her, and I am a patient access officer here at Guy's and St. Thomas's Hospital. I am also a performer, and I am originally from the Philippines.
All right. Welcome, everyone. I am your host today, Liam Pascal. My pronouns are he, him, his. I actually work at Proexcel with Ros, and I own my own company, Gender Bin Consulting, where I actually provide LGBTQ plus inclusion and understanding training. And I am super, super excited to be here with all of you. So I think the best thing we can do right now is to go ahead and get started. So I think the first question I'd love to ask is, when did you feel safe to come out in the workplace? And would you mind sharing your experience?
Me personally, I have never felt safe, ever felt safe coming out in a traditional workplace. I have been fired for being trans 3 times, and it literally has changed the trajectory of my life. So I never feel safe. So I don't discuss it. I don't allow it to be discussed. You know, I'm an activist, so you can find me online, but if you bring that to me at work, I'm going to shut it down. I'm here to do a job. My identity has nothing to do with this job. Let's focus on our work. I don't even allow it to even come up because I don't feel safe. And so I've never felt safe in that regards. Now, being the executive director of a trans-led organization now, of course, that's different, but I have never been in this type of safe environment until now, but this is an organization that I helped steer and found. And so, of course, it's going to be a safe place for me. But a traditional job, no, I've never felt safe at all.
Thank you for sharing that, Diamond. Tate, what's your story?
Well, firstly, Diamond, I'm really, really sorry to hear that, and I hope that anyone listening today can really take note from that. I've had a mixed bag of experiences. So in my first organization that I came out to, they were all really supportive at first and really on board and were happy to give me time off for appointments. But as soon as the date to me getting testosterone came closer and closer, they thought I was going to turn into the Incredible Hulk and be really angry and just start having a go at my colleagues. And that's just not the case at all. Like, testosterone actually makes you more focused, confident, and productive. And they sent me to an occupational health therapist to try and get a second opinion, even though I was being seen by really great doctors. And he basically said those words to them, but they wouldn't listen, and HR wouldn't listen either. And it was like they were trying to force their own narrative, and they didn't have a trans policy in place. Their LGBT network was very, very small. I really felt like I couldn't be out and open in this organization. So when I joined Clifford Chance, it was a complete different story because they had a trans policy since 2016. I knew that they were representing a non-gendered person in the High Court at the time. Now it's gone to the Supreme Court, the ex-passports case. So I knew there was a demonstrated history of supporting trans rights, but also within the organization too. So I felt incredibly safe to come out, and I did so straight away. And that was because their LGBT network Arcus is so big, and everyone's just so lovely, and they've got this fantastic culture here. So for me, it was a mixture of the people, the culture, but also the fact that they had a policy in place, private medical insurance provided for trans people, and all the fantastic pro bono work they're doing for the LGBT community.
It's interesting. I wonder if there's a significant difference between your experience and Diamond's experience, because you're in the UK and Diamond's in the US. I can say, Diamond, I've heard more stories like yours than Tate's. I myself, I'm in the US, and I had a really good experience coming out as trans. My employer was very supportive. Had all the right benefits to help me in my medical transition. But I will say that it was a very scary time for me. And the first thing that came to my mind was, how will my colleagues react to me? How will my manager react to me? And long story short, I will say that my manager was amazing. He actually called me over the phone. I was driving down the road, and he said to me, "Hey, I heard you were transitioning, that you're going to be going by a different name. And I think that's really awesome. And I just want you to know that I might be your manager, but right now I'm also your bro. And you can call me anytime and chat with me and tell me what's going on with your transition. I'm really interested in learning more about it, and I'm here for you." So again, Diamond, I'm sorry that you have felt like that during your career, and I hope that will eventually change for you.
What state are you in?
I'm in North Carolina.
Okay, well, you're not in a progressive state.
No.
I think for me, it's because of I transitioned in '95, and that's a big difference in time. Like, I think if I was transitioning now, I would feel more safe. But when I got into the work, I've been working since I was 13, and that is when I transitioned. And so. Wow. And I'm 40 now. So in that time period, we didn't have the cultural progression that we have now. And so in my experiences, it just has always been like, literally, in 2002, I was fired from a job, and they specifically told me that it was because I was trans. It wasn't even like they needed to mince words. They didn't even need to hide it, because first of all, where I was in Indiana, it was an at-will state. I'm at an at-will state now in Texas, but they can just fire you. They don't need to give you a reason. And we didn't have, recently, we just got the amazing landmark case in June of 2020 that protects us when it comes to trans people being included in the protection of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And so we just got that June in the middle of the pandemic. And so prior to that, we really didn't have any legal standing to say, hey, this is discrimination. We're able to sue you, and we're able to do what we need to do. So prior to that, people could just do it. And I remember I had custody of my brother at the time, and I was 21. I couldn't find a job. My name wasn't changed then. And it just was a whole struggle situation. And it led me into sex work. It led me into so many situations that I wouldn't have been in if I was able to keep my job. And so I have that scar in me. So I just don't want to discuss it. I just don't feel safe discussing it. I feel if you know, I don't really care that you know. When we're at work, I just want to do the work. I don't want to discuss it. I don't want to talk about it. I just don't want it to be a part of what's going on at work. I just want to do my job. And so that's what I try to do. But people are messy, so they try to come and say something in my past, but I just kind of nip it in the butt and say, hey, I don't really want to discuss that.
But I think what you've done coming out at 13, I think you said in 95, you've definitely paved the way for those that are coming after you. So thank you for that.
I really admire you, Diamond. So again, and I also respect how you wanted to present yourself in this role. And I think, again, there is a different way of transitioning and different experiences. And I am with you. And I totally admire your courage for sharing. At least at some point, brave enough to kind of just shrug things off and move on and focus on the solution, not on the problems. And for me, I would like to just briefly say that, coming here to the United Kingdom 2009, I'm very fortunate enough that my employers, because I've been working in the health and social care sector for 11 years, and I've been lucky enough that I have colleagues, managers who are really supportive, and they are the one who, because I didn't know that I can change my name here in UK. So they're the one who introduced me to change by default. So, and throughout those journeys, something like, should I really get rid of my old name and then change my new name? But now I'm more than happy to be called Victoria Igaten because of my managers and colleagues who are very, pushing me and just to be completely authentic by who I am. Yet at some point there is still a room of improvements up there that some people are not aware about how they can support us, how they can call. They will call us, with their pronouns and all of those things while working. Yet, I'm being very collaborative and making sure that I am here to work and focus on my job. As what Diamond says, just do our job.
Thank you, Victoria. And thank all of you for sharing your experiences. I really appreciate that. So let's talk about, I think all of you except for myself and Diamond are in the UK. So I want to dig a little deeper and find out, how would you describe the experience of trans employees in the UK compared to other countries? And, what do you feel are the next steps for further inclusion? Ros, do you want to start us off here?
Oh, and obviously I'm speaking from an outsider's perspective. So not being a member of the transgender and non-binary community myself, I don't speak on behalf of everyone. I can only share my observations. But I think thinking about some other countries, obviously in some countries it's illegal to be a member of the community. We don't have that in the UK, very fortunately. In others, it's actually really common and it's not even deemed a thing. It's just always been around. So I guess from what I've observed, we are lying somewhere in the middle. I certainly say it isn't perfect and it's developing. But from the stories that I've heard from Tate and Victoria, I'm definitely heartened by that. I think in terms of taking things a step further, I think education is absolutely critical. And Liam has been an amazing partner for me in our organisation and very open to teaching me and being very kind if I don't necessarily get it right, in educating me in how to get it right. And I think that that's important, but also not always putting the burden on members of the transgender community to obviously educate me and me going and doing my own research as well. But I think having proactive employee hiring practices is really important as well. And I imagine that's not widespread at the moment. and also making sure that there are workplace accommodations. So I know that we have gender neutral bathrooms or restrooms, as you say, in the US, across our UK sites. But I know that that will still be a struggle and will not be the case in all different organisations. But I think what I've learned is, as I've been learning more against transgender and non-binary challenges, specifically in healthcare, because that's our organisation is a healthcare organisation, I think that I've learned that there is just so more that we can do. But when I've been sharing with others some of these challenges, some of these barriers that our colleagues and our patients face, everybody has been open to learning. And every conversation I have, people always say at the end, wow, that was amazing. I didn't even know that these challenges existed, and I'm thinking about things differently. So I think people's openness to do better is really heartening. I think seeing people like a member of the Kardashians coming out as transgender, or Kardashian Jenners, I should say, getting my my celebrity stakes right, and people like Demi Lovato and Sam Smith, and seeing it in the celebrity world, I think it's becoming more normalised, and I think a recent piece of research I read showed that the estimate is around 1.2 million people in the US now identify as trans or non-binary, and with that community growing and becoming more visible, I think it's definitely something that people are realizing they need to sit up and listen and do better.
I will say this before I move on. Ros is what I consider to be not just an ally, she's a co-conspirator. I actually learned that word last night at another event with some other transgender individuals, and she's just highly active. She's not just one of those people who speaks up and speaks out. She's a doer. So I definitely consider her to be a co-conspirator for the trans community. So thank you, Ros.
Thank you, Liam.
Tate, what about you? How would you describe the experience in the UK as compared to other places?
I think for the most part, the UK is much better than other countries because the legislation protects us. But our rights are really, really going backwards in the UK at the moment. I mean, LGBT hate crime is just awful at the moment. It's risen by 30%. And there's a lot of attacks on the trans agenda, and there's a lot of hate coming our way. Everyone's attacking Stonewall, BBC don't seem to be doing a very good job either, and there's just very, very transphobic articles being published and misinformation being spread. So it's very important that workplaces and people and organizations are mindful that these things are going on and reach out to your trans colleagues and offer your support, because we need it during this time. I think we've got a long way to go with society and our attitudes towards trans people, and especially non-binary people. So I would just echo some of the things that Rosamund said with gender neutral bathrooms, but also things that really should be a given: having a trans policy, having an LGBT network, hosting and celebrating events that commemorate trans people, ensuring that you have medical insurance policies for trans people, and you're not just doing things for tokenism or a tick box exercise. You're doing it because you want to celebrate your trans employees. So yeah, a long way to go, but it's really great that we are having panels and open discussions like this to be able to raise awareness to this, because I don't know about you, but this year I really want to make Trans Day of Remembrance be about trans success and joy, and have all that positivity just sweep over the hate that's coming our way.
Yeah, absolutely. As you're talking, I see some similarities between the US and the UK, and I'd love to hear from Diamond on this as well. But I know that there's been a lot of hate crimes against the transgender population here. We've had more, I think, killings of trans people than any other year before. And that's just, it's hard to swallow to know that people are being killed just for being who they are. And there are a lot of laws being passed here, anti-trans laws, that are attacking our trans youth, as well as everyone else. So I think we've definitely taken a few steps backward in the past few years, even though we were making a lot of progress previously. Diamond, what are your thoughts on the US versus UK?
I think if you, in comparison, I think that it depends on what state you live in here in Houston. I mean, in the United States, in Texas, as you just said, Texas has the leading number of trans deaths out of all the states. So where I stay, we're on ground zero in trying to. It's a conservative red state. We are really, 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 really in an uphill battle when it comes to procuring trans rights, public accommodation, changes of birth certificates, changes of anything that, trans people need in this particular state. But then if you go to California or if you go to New York, they have a lot of infrastructure, a lot of policies on the books, literally to protect trans people in those states that I think is maybe even a little bit more advanced than the UK. So it just depends on where you are in the states when it comes to trans protections. Because if you're in the South, you are in the ice ages when it comes to trans protections. But, when you're usually, like New York or California, you have way more protections. Like they get surgeries funded by the state. They get, it's just a whole different experience. They have a whole transgender cultural district in San Francisco. And so, and so it's just a total different vibe if you go to certain parts. But then, when you come to the South or Texas, Louisiana, Florida, even kind of Midwest, like Ohio, you just don't have the protections. And, we are in an uphill battle.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts on that? All right. So let's talk about, and I'd like to hear from every one of you, but maybe when I ask this question, so what is your advice to people that wish to be active trans allies or co-conspirators, as I called Ros earlier? Maybe if each of you can give like 2 pieces of advice for anyone that's interested in being an active trans ally. Let's start with Victoria on this.
I think for me to be an active trans ally it's not for us to educate them, it's for those people as the willingness to learn, to unlearn something that's for centuries ago, for centuries has been embedded into the system. And it's not too late to change all of those. And I think in a simple way, such as wearing a pronoun badges, because at the moment as well here in our NHS Trust, we are promoting NHS badges with she and her, they and them, and he and him, and all of those pronouns that we encourage them to be a very inclusive workplace. And so that's the number 1, is to wear a name badge with pronouns, and at the same time attend an events like this.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Victoria. Diamond.
For me, I want you as an ally to take control of your power in your circle. A lot of times when we're talking about dismantling systems like racism or sexism, pushing up against misogyny and patriarchy, when we're talking about these systems, sometimes we can have the delusion of thinking, God, these things are so big. How can little old me change this thing that we are trying to battle up against? But understand that you have power in your circle. You may not have presidential power. You may not have the power of some rich baron or something like that. But in your circle, in your home, in your workplace, wherever you have power, you have the ability to control what is happening, what is being said, because we can have all the policies in the world, but that doesn't mean that the culture is going to change. How culture changes is if in your circle, if we're talking about just like your little church group, when we're talking about when you're at the coffee shop, wherever you have the power to speak up. Now, of course, we know sometimes you're not going to have the power, but when you do, if you come across somebody being transphobic, if you come across moments of where somebody is being ignorant, that is when you step up and say, you know what? I'm not going to let that slide. No, I don't feel comfortable with you making those kind of statements. I don't feel comfortable with what's happening. And I don't think that's okay. Trans people deserve to live. Trans people deserve humanity. Trans people deserve all the things that we as cis people have. And it can be in your home. We're not going to allow those things to be said. We're not going to allow people to be misgendered. Where you have the power, you have the control. How are you reaching out? If you are a hiring person, how are you recruiting trans people? What is your strategy? Are you including that strategy in your plan to recruit? If you are a healthcare provider, if you are providing services, like how are you making the application? How are you making the questions that are being asked more inclusive of trans people? How are you, in the power that you have, doing in the circle that you are, using that power and that privilege to wield a change in your circle? We're not talking about the big picture. We're not talking about the big government. We're not talking about dismantling racism and ending it all together. Don't think that big. Think smaller. Your circle. How are you dismantling those systems in your circle? You got to hold that power and take it by the reins and do what you need to do. That's what allies do.
I think people are loving your comments to that one, Diamond. I will tell you, I heard that word privilege at the end there. And that's one of the things for me that's big is using your privilege, right? We all have privileges. We can use those privileges to make change. And the other thing I would say for me is you've got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have to have those uncomfortable conversations. You may not like it, but you've got to do it if we're going to see some change. Tate, what are your thoughts?
I think a good trans ally for me looks like someone who's going to continuously educate themselves. I mean, it's great that, to have open conversations with trans people and use that as your primary source. But there's also lots of resources at your fingertips too. And I would say just don't forget that there's the Stonewall Glossary, which I love to share because that's really great to refer to for terminology. Really get yourself up to speed with the current terminology, but also understand that you are still allowed to make mistakes. And if you do, that's totally okay. We're all human. And sorry, I just love the Stonewall Glossary. Yeah, me too, Kirsty. Yeah, so I would use that definitely as your go-to, and also do your research, look into other bits of media, watch fantastic documentaries like Disclosure that are going to educate you so much, and other shows like Pose, and you've got lots of books and YouTubers, trans YouTubers, transitions. You will learn so much from there. I think there really is a lot that you can do on your own if you don't happen to be surrounded by trans people that you know of.
Absolutely. And we're going to hear from our ally here, Ros. What are your thoughts, Ros?
So kind of building on the amazing comments that we've already had where Tate was saying that maybe sometimes you make a mistake. I think that's something that I learned fairly early on. If you make a mistake, acknowledge it and move on quickly. Don't over apologize and make that trans individual feel guilty by you being, oh, I'm so sorry, and them saying, oh, no, it's okay. Like, it's your mistake, like own the mistake, move on and draw a line under it. I think that for me is quite important. Also, like just in the workplace, in the workplace and outside the workplace, having zero tolerance for bigotry, just zero tolerance. It's not allowed. at the same time, sometimes there are teachable moments. So sometimes someone's trying to learn and they might get it wrong. Well, I had a situation the other day, we're doing a big piece of work looking at how we can be more inclusive in clinical trials for people from the trans and non-binary community. And someone's trying to help on this piece of work. And they wrote in an email something to me about transsexual people. And I said, very gently, oh, I know you're learning and that's great. That's not really a term that's deemed to be used now. It's somewhat offensive. So, use transgender instead, but don't worry, we're all in this together, a kind of smiley face. And so the person was trying hard and I didn't want to put them off, but educating them on those kind of specifics when they get it wrong in a comfortable way, if you know that it's coming from a good place, I guess.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ros. Thanks, everyone. When we're thinking about the workplace, it's the place where we spend a large amount of our time. I think even more than we do in our personal lives sometimes. So when we're thinking about where we work, how do we improve that trans inclusion and belonging in those spaces and really support our trans employees in bringing their authentic selves to work? We talked about what our allies can do. What can our employers do? What can our colleagues do to really encourage, accept transgender folks in the workplace and really encourage them to come bring their true authentic selves to work? Let's see. Maybe Victoria?
Yes, to become a truly inclusive employer, I think it's really best to have a strong policies and resources in place and to make sure that it's an inclusive, and also at the same time, every now and then, if there's an amendment that's needs to happen, it should have this discussion with and involve all those transgender people in this in the workplace to make sure that it's updated and all of those terminologies that was said they said was appropriate for everyone. So I think a very strong and robust policies that say no matter who you are, no matter how you present yourself, or even during your transitioning, or where do you see yourself 10 years from now or at the moment, you are a valid employees of this company. You're a valid employees of this trust. And I think that is one of these the employees can do at the moment. And I'm making sure every now and then there is an event that celebrate our identities, such as Transgender Day of Awareness, and to be out there. Earlier, my colleague, he was helping me to really set up this the Zoom meetings that for me to occupy this whole seminar room. And I've worked with him for almost 3 years now here at NHS. And he was saying to me, "Oh, you're gonna be late, we hurry up," because so it was like, and such a simple gesture like that. I think it's really affect me for who I am and the feeling of being acknowledged of my identity. So yes, I'm very grateful for those simple moments that I am in a safe workplace environment.
Excellent advice. Thank you, Victoria. Let's see, in the interest of time, maybe one more. Diamond?
So I kind of break it down in a couple of areas. So policy, make sure that your policy is including gender identity and expression as a protected category. Like, just like we talk about race, just like we talk about gender, make sure that your identity and sexual orientation and all those things are also included in that kind of conversation in regards to protections in your handbook. The process, make sure that you are establishing guidelines when it comes to people who are transitioning at your job, like how that process happens and how your organization or firm makes it smooth for the person who is transitioning. Education and compliance, when we talk about providing information and training to the whole organization. make sure that you are requiring your employees to get that education and that training. Also, documentation. Make sure that it is easy and there's not tons of barriers making people have to go through to get personal information updated once they change their name, once they change everything that they need to have. Make sure that their personal records are easy to be able to be changed. And facilities, make sure that the restrooms or locker rooms in the gyms or wherever that trans people might need to have access to, that are public accommodations, make sure that they are protected and they're okay, and can be in those spaces without any problems. Dress code, make sure dress code is quite gender neutral, and applied consistently across the organization, because everybody's gender expression is going to be different. So don't have all the women have to wear skirts, because I might not want to wear a skirt. That might not be the woman that I want to represent. And so also make sure that your insurance, your health benefits of your job is including of trans people in our care that we need. And so I think those are the key things that not only does it help your the environment of the job feel safe, it also keeps workers. I know one of the tenets, I've been a manager of an organization, and one of the tenets is to retain to retain your employees. If you want to retain us and make us feel safe, and we bring these amazing skills and this unique perspective that is only going to enrich your team, if you want to retain us, you got to make the environment safe for us. And so when we see all of these things in the handbook, in the policies, in your actual culture of your organization, we feel safe. And look, Liam just talked about feeling safe at his location. So those type of things, seeing those type of things lets me know that, oh, this is an organization that I can trust. This is an organization that I work for, that I can work for and give my labor freely, because they are making it safe for me as a trans person.
Diamond Roz is making a checklist of everything you just said there. So, I think too, just to go off of what you and Victoria said, it's also got to start from top down leadership, right? And leadership at every level. If we don't have leaders that are supportive of our individual contributors, it's never going to work. And I'm going to take a quote from my prior CEO. He always said, "We're not going to deal with jerks. We're not going to hire jerks. We're not going to keep jerks here. And we're just not going to deal with it. We need people who are supportive, inclusive, and want to make sure that they are educating themselves and understanding their people." So fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. All right, we got a couple more questions, and this is a big one. When you think about the acronym, the LGBTQ+, how has the visibility of that T changed in recent years? Do you think, it needs to change further? Are we seeing more or less acceptance from the LGB part of that acronym? And maybe share some of your experience in feeling like you've been supported or maybe not supported by the LGB portion of that group. Tate, you want to kick us off here?
Sure. I have found it to be a mixed bag from in and out of the community. I know there are a lot of people who actually believe that the T should be separate and be its own community by itself, even though the Stonewall riots while we're all here was started by trans people. It's been difficult. I've found there to be actually quite a lot of internalized homophobia and transphobia. And I really discovered that when coming to terms with not only my trans male identity, but also the fact that I'm a gay man as well. And I found that the reactions that I got from gay men were very, very strange. And some of the things that were being said to me were just not appropriate. And to the wider community as well, I feel like the B and the T is often forgotten about. And, everybody loves a white, cis, able-bodied gay man because everyone loves to have like a gay best friend, but nobody, wants to associate with someone who's trans or stand up for trans issues. And I think that's really sad. And I think that's really where we're at with the community now. That being said, there are things like this that are going on. There is a lot of activism going on and people standing up for our rights. And that is really, really great to see. And I really would encourage everyone to keep it up. And like Diamond was saying earlier, you know, just start small, start within your own circle, putting pronouns in your email signature, correcting people or correcting.
You dropped out just a bit there, Tate. I think we heard the last one. Basically, just doing your part, right? Every little bit helps. Exactly what Diamond was saying earlier. So thank you for sharing that. I think you got Daniel says, I'm a trans man too, and I totally agree with Tate, and I as a trans man concur. So I think we're all on the same page there. Anyone else want to weigh in on that question?
I started, like I said, in 95, and it is a drastic difference. What is really stands out in regards to like the unique way that people can see themselves now is like Tate brought up pose. Tate brought up disclosure. I will bring up the documentary of named I Am Polly Murray, and describing their experience on Prime. I literally cried tears watching Disclosure, just because I was like, this is the content that I needed when I was a teen. And now I was 39 at the time. And this is the content that I needed, because when I was a teen, only reference that I had was The Crying Game, Jerry Springer, those things where were not great, but at least on Jerry Springer, I would be sitting in front of the TV like, at least this is an affirmation that we exist. I may be alone.
Me too,
I may be alone
too.
in my little small town, but I can at least know that I'm not the only one out here in the world. And so what's beautiful about this day and age is that we have this amazing internet, and it allows us to actually find our tribe, find our community, and find our people, and say, oh, okay, well, let's build off of this. Let's become friends. And now, of course, we know that everybody doesn't agree and have the same politics, but let me find people who do have the same politics as me, and who do align with what I believe about myself, what I believe about the hopes of where the world could be. And so that is what I am seeing. I'm seeing us build community and build content and build safety and safety nets in our culture, so that we can not only shift our culture in a way that's more progressive, but hold people accountable that are stopping us from that progression. Like when we think about Dave Chappelle, when we think about, you may have the power to not get canceled because you got so much money and so much power, but gone are the days where we're just letting you slide. Like we're just letting you say whatever you want to say about us and use us as the butt of the joke. We're going to say something, and we're going to trend. We're going to talk mad, SHIT. We're going to do whatever is in our power to be able to let you know that that is not okay. We might not be able to stop you or or cancel you, but we're able to let you know this is not going to just slide. You're going to get some type of resistance, where back in the day, people could say whatever they want to say, and it wouldn't be a bleep in the atmosphere, in the culture at all. So, I do see progression. I have seen so many beautiful things, young people. I'm just so proud. It makes me feel like everything that I went through I'm not laying a path for everybody, but my little drop in the bucket, it makes me feel good that that the torch is being passed, and nothing that happened in our generation was in vain, because we see the fruits of our labor.
Yeah, Diamond, aren't we fortunate that we no longer have to rely on Jerry Springer to give us some representation of who we are, right? We've got so much better now that we can sort of look at and think, wow, this is the kind of person that I want to look up to. These are the kinds of people who are doing all the things that are making positive change for us. So absolutely. We got some really good comments in chat. So I hope you all are taking a look at the chat as we go along.
Daniel is yes.
Daniel is on it. Daniel is on it. Definitely. All right. I think this is the last question, but it's sort of a almost like a lightning round kind of question, because I want to hear from each of you one tip, if you can think of the most important tip, and I know there are a lot, to make the recruitment process for companies more trans inclusive. When you're considering, you're out there looking for jobs, trying to figure out what your next step is in your career, what do you think companies can do to make the recruitment process more trans inclusive? And Ros, I think we'll start with you.
Thank you. Aside from inclusive job adverts, I would say training the recruiters so that they are sensitive and they are not putting people off at what could be seen as the first hurdle, where people, when the first contact to have with the company is giving the impression that people feel this is a place for me.
Absolutely. Who wants to go next? I'm looking at Victoria, so I think I'm going to choose you, Victoria.
Yes, there's a lot of trans organizations who are really willing to collaborate to those different employers to be more trans inclusive. Myself, I also, by the way, working for Guys in St. Thomas Hospital. I'm also working for Clinic Q. It's a trans and non-binary health and well-being at King's College Hospital. So every now and then we are collaborating with different employers and organization and institution here in UK to be sure that during the recruitment process they are aware about certain issues and topic on how to really connect to possible candidates, and it's a very welcoming employer. So there's a lot of charity and institution out there that we can really say connect and build bridges. So yes, that's
I hope everyone is taking notes of all these things that we want our recruiters to do, so we can share those after the call today. Tate, what are your thoughts?
I think for any recruiters or interviewers in the room, just be mindful and don't assume anyone's pronouns or anyone's identity based on their gender expression, because the two may not be linked. Also, yeah, just to be mindful of that. And if you do get it wrong in the interview, then apologize, acknowledge, and move forth, because there have been some examples where I've been in interviews or recruiters have approached me and then they've misgendered me, and then they put the embarrassment on me, and that's just something you shouldn't do.
Absolutely. And then last but not least, Diamond.
I would say cast your net more widely. Like where are when since we're talking about net and using that analogy, when I'm trying to catch a special type of fish, I need to go where those special types of fishes are. If I'm trying to catch the regular little bluegills or guppies that I'm normally catching, I'm gonna throw my net where I normally throw it. You have to think of creative ways. How are you getting the word out about these positions in your recruitment to trans organizations? How are you casting in that there? I like say, hey, I got some job positions. Y'all, there's tons of boards and blogs and different things that specifically cater to trans people. And so how, like I have a podcast and we have 30,000 listeners a month. How are you advertising with my podcast that has a big trans audience? Are you going to HRC saying, hey, can you post this on your newsletter? How are you casting your net so that people in the trans community can actually see that you are recruiting instead of, just the typical ways that you cast your net. Like really, really think of unique ways of how to get into our community so we can find out about you. And that kind of intention makes us excited. Oh my God, you're looking for us. And so, yeah, just how, where, and how you cast your net. Think more creative and broadly.
Casting the net wide, make sure you're reaching out to everybody. Absolutely. I think, making the whole process itself more gender inclusive in general. So breaking away from those societal norms that we've all grown up with. And one way to do that, and people think this is a major big deal, but it's something so simple as adding your pronouns to your LinkedIn profile. You're a recruiter, add your pronouns, add them to your email signature. When you're casting that net, it will show people that you are an inclusive employer. Using gender neutral pronouns in your job descriptions. We've got to get away from our old ways of doing things. So thank you all for sharing. I think we've got some questions in the chat. So I'm going to take a quick look here. We've got one question that says, any advice on how companies that would like to be more trans inclusive can ensure that trans people are feeling welcome, feeling like they belong? So where and how do companies learn how to be inclusive? Would anybody like to take that? Or I can call. Tate's going to do it.
I'm happy to kick things off. I get asked this question quite a lot actually when I'm sort of out and open in corporate organizations. For me, I don't think there's any one way that you can learn to become more inclusive. I think that you learn from multiple sources, multiple stimuli. But for me, it would be actively showing your support for the trans community, hiring a D&I consultant, just seeing rainbow lanyards. I think it's a great show of solidarity, not a gimmick or a sign of tokenism, as long as you do other stuff alongside it. Policy, gender neutral bathrooms, advocating for pronouns in your signatures, but also making that as part of your culture as well. And alongside actively supporting trans charities as well, volunteering, fundraising, doing work for them. Depending on where you're based, there's some fantastic charities in the UK, Spectra, Mermaid, Kirsty, Gendered Intelligence, who I actually volunteer with. That's going to really show that you take this seriously and you are advocating for trans rights, and through that you're going to attract more trans people to your organization because they're going to feel very safe, included, and championed.
Thank you, Tate. Let's see. How are you finding trans joy this year? And maybe I'll start this one off. I would say for me, considering everything that's going on in the world around us that can be very negative when it comes to the anti-trans laws and murders of trans people, what I'm finding joy in is all the people whose lives I'm touching and changing, the parents that are reaching out to me saying, hey, because of you, I'm now able to better understand my child who is trans or non-binary. Can I have coffee with you and ask you some questions on how to better support my child? These are the things that bring me joy, because if I can make a positive impact and change one transgender youth's life, that for me is just all the joy that I need. Who else wants to weigh in on that one? Diamond?
Yeah, and knowing that I'm on the right side of history, child, listen. I learned as a Black woman, I learned that it takes a long time for stuff to change. The civil rights movement happened. Slavery stopped in the late 1800s. It takes a long time for the culture to shift to where we are right now. So I know I probably won't be able to see in my lifetime some of the changes that I want to see, but I have been passed a torch from my ancestors, my queer ancestors, my Black ancestors, my women ancestors, everybody who has passed a torch to me to shift this culture in a direction that is more inclusive for Black people, that is more safe and inclusive for women, that is more safe and inclusive for queer people, that is more economically survivable for people who don't have money. All these things, I know that I've been passed the torch. And so I know that I'm going to pass the torch to somebody else. I just want to make it easier. I want to make sure that I'm taking care of myself to where my cup is full enough for me to give the overflow. So I'm not burnt out. So I'm not getting sick like Audre Lorde and you know, not being able to take care of my body so we can be gone too soon. I want to make sure that I'm taking care of myself, but all enough so I can continue to fight as long as I am on this earth. And that and seeing this change and being in spaces like this with affirming people, that is the stuff that gives me joy. I know that we're going to have, you know, those people who are racist, those people who are transphobic, those people who are sexist. I know we're going to have that. That's going to be a battle. But it's spaces like this, spaces that I see where people are doing the work, there are allies. Those are the things that gives me the joy. More people being employed and having a living wage. Those things, when I see it happening, that's what gives me the joy. That's what gives me the fuel to keep going, because, you know, I see progress.
Diamond, I'm coming to Texas to hang out with you. That's what I need to do. That's what I need to do. And one of our participants here has a question related to what you said earlier about the crying game, Diamond. How do you all feel about trans portrayals on TV and film these days? Is it slowly getting better? Does it feel like a very rare occasion when it happens? And is it not always helpful, or both? Anybody want to tackle that one? Victoria?
Personally, I'm also a performer, and I've been as an actor for almost 5 years, and also working for health and social care sector. So I think the opportunity of having trans characters need to be portrayed by trans actors. There's a lot of trans and non-binary performers already there that have a lot of skills and talents and their identity to offer an authenticity that we can bring into this film, into the theaters that are out there, compared to if we're going to cast a cisgender person, which is weakening those ideas, those thoughts, those feelings as a trans person, because we are a lived experiences. We've been throughout the journey, and we would love to share that to the audience, and we would love to connect that. And by doing that, we should cast trans people, trans actors. Yes, there's still room for improvement. We are all learning from this, and I think all the casting directors and agents out there need to really collaborate with us, listen to us, talk to us, what needs to be done. We are here. We have the skills. We have the talents. We can work with you.
Thank you.
What other people can do, we can do too.
Absolutely. All right, we're at our 1 minute mark, and I'm gonna, I guess, Jen, bring you back if you don't mind coming back with us here. I want to, for me, say that this has been absolutely amazing. I feel like I'm just in such amazing company here. I want to thank all of you, the panelists. You've been wonderful, and all of you, the participants that are here with us that came to educate yourself and learn more about the trans community and being inclusive. Thank you all so much, and I'm going to turn this back over to Jen now.
Thank you so much to all of our panelists, our attendees, for contributing to this powerful discussion. I know I've learned so much from each of you. So on behalf of my GWork, thank you, Ros, Tate, Victoria, Diamond, Liam. It's been amazing to hear from you, your perspectives, your personal stories, and I hope we'll all have the opportunity to learn from one another and become better allies. Reminder that you can also all connect with our panelists. Their My GWork profiles are in the chat if you scroll up. And thank you to our attendees. If you want to connect, that's what I just said, our panelists are in the chat. And so I want to encourage everyone to be kind to one another. As Diamond said, find your tribe, lift and support one another. We're all in this journey we call life together. And it is great to have the space like this to connect with different people from different parts of the world and share our experience.